Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Launch and Scale Your Business with Limited Capital. My name is Michelle Eisenberg, and I am a program assistant here at the NASDAQ Center. And for those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center is a nonprofit that's building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. So as you will see in the chat in a moment, the NASDAQ Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So definitely make sure to check out those links and resources in the chat. And then just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First, let us know where you are dialing in from in the chat. We always love to connect. And second, we are going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event. So please make sure to submit your questions for us in that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation, and we will try our best to get to all of them. And of course, none of what we do could be possible at the center without all of the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Wells Fargo, the Narit Foundation, Walmart.org, JP Morgan Chase, BPM, HubSpot for Startups, and Google Cloud. We are humbled by their contributions and hope you are grateful too. All right, so before we get started, we always like to launch a couple polls to take a step back and see how everyone here is doing today. This first one is going to ask, how are you feeling? Fearful, anxious, surviving, or optimistic? How are you feeling about your business? Fearful, anxious, surviving, or optimistic? We'll give it just a couple more moments. All right, one more moment here. Awesome. All right, I'm going to end this poll and share these results. All right, looks like optimism coming up in the lead. Always wonderful to see, but we definitely have some feelings of anxiety and surviving. So hopefully this shows you that no matter what you're feeling, you are not alone. And I'm very confident that our conversation today may help alleviate some of those anxious feelings. So I'm going to stop sharing this poll and launch the second one. What is keeping you up at night? Is it finance, sales, marketing, scale, pivot, team, or surviving? And this one just helps us understand your current needs as an entrepreneur so we can ensure the programs and resources we're putting out into the world are valuable for all of you. Awesome. I'll give it one more moment. All right, we got folks from DC, South Carolina, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, California, Utah, Connecticut, New Jersey, Alabama, the United Kingdom. Welcome, welcome. New York, Maryland, Texas, Wisconsin. All right, Malawi, welcome, welcome. Germany. Awesome. We're seeing folks from all over the place. That's wonderful. All right, one more moment on this poll. And okay, I am going to end this poll and share these results. All right, finance coming up in the lead, sales close behind, very fitting for our topic today, but looks like we got needs all across the board here. So thank you all so much for participating. I'm going to stop sharing this poll, and without any further delay, please join me in giving the warmest welcome to our special guest, La'Daska Mechell, founder at La'Daska Mechell and the LM Factory. La'Daska, so excited to have you here for this topic. It's so needed, especially at the beginning of the year. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, before we jump right into the conversation, could you maybe just give the audience like 30 to 60 seconds on who are you?
Okay. My name is La'Daska Mechell. I'm a fashion designer. I also own and operate a clothing factory in New York. I am a recent author and just a serial entrepreneur.
Awesome, wonderful. And you've kind of gone through these hoops before. And so
Yeah.
speaking from the personal experience of an entrepreneur is so important to hear. So awesome. All right. Well, I guess to kick us right off, I'm sure we have many in the audience that have, some kind of product-based business. And, if you're kind of just starting out with that kind of business and you might have limited capital, what are some of the most important first steps that founders should be taking to build that strong foundation for eventual launch and scale?
Well, there's there's a few things that one should do. One is identifying who your target audience is. Well before you even get your capital or your savings or your money, you have to figure out what is the problem that you see in the market that you want to enter. And then you solve a problem. Solving a problem is what brings the clients to you instead of you having to go to them. So figure out where there's a gap, where there's a problem, finding a solution, creating the solution, and then develop your business and your talents around the problem. And then from there, you can then determine, well, who am I trying to target? And you have to build out an entire customer profile so that you understand the average person who is going to buy your product or service. If you don't have that, you can't even place a price point on your services or your products that you're offering. When you determine your target audience and then what they're willing or can pay based on even doing market, not even a market analysis, but uh, a customer analysis. How do they shop? Where do they shop? Who are your competitor? What do they spend on an item? If your product is in the store, um, who would your brand or product sit next to?
Yeah.
How much do they spend on their product or service? Then you can determine how much your product or service should be. From there, then you have to understand, well, what are the psychographics of my customer? you know what are their moods? How do they shop? When do they shop? Where do they eat? Where do they frequent? Where do they travel if they do travel? Where do they live? So then you can position yourself in the place where they are.
Yeah.
And those are the basic steps to starting a successful business.
Yeah, really helpful. And I'm sure there's a lot of themes in there that entrepreneurs in the audience may have, touched on or heard before. Maybe they're even kind of working, on that customer profiling. And so just to dive a little bit deeper there, can you maybe just talk more about like the importance of customer profiling and practical steps that entrepreneurs can take to truly understand their customers and their needs and then use that data to tailor their products to meet those needs. Like how does customer profiling take you there?
Well, you can't even start a business without it.
Yeah.
To be honest. And I will give you an example. When I started the Ellum factory, which is the clothing factory that I started during the pandemic, I'm actually a fashion designer, but there were so many issues pertaining to smaller brands being able to start, launch, and scale their business due to three issues: one, lack of resources, lack of capital, and then most factories don't work with smaller brands.
Mm.
So, four different brands approached me to help them because they knew of the quality of my work in my design business. So, I started to help them out, solve their problem. And then, what I realized in helping others, I realized that the issues are it is the issue really is just about finding not just the capital, but finding the resources. When you find the resources, then you're able to one get your because the other things that are important is having an attorney, having a bookkeeper and those things as well. But building out your customer profile, it all aligns together. It really does. It's like a full ecosystem within a small ecosystem. And the customer profile allows you to really narrow in on who you're serving. Because if you're solving a problem for an industry or even your community, there's no way you can even put a price on something if you don't narrow down who your customer is. And when you're building out your customer profile, you have to know, well, okay, well, what is their average age? Not the age of every customer, but just the average, the median age range of your customer. How much do they make? What's their household income? Are they married? Do they have children? Do they live in a city? Are they in suburban life or urban, rural areas? You need to know all these different small pieces in order to really pinpoint who you're serving. And then because that way you're able to tailor your business to the needs of your customer or your client.
Mm-hmm.
Without the customer, there's no business. Without solving a problem that your community needs, there's no success. So
Yeah, absolutely.
so these are literally the basics. And then when you get deeper into past the building out your customer profile, then you start with your business profile.
Yeah.
And then you figure out, okay, well, how can I better serve this customer, this median range of a client based on their their demographic, then you're able to tailor, well, where do they live? If they're living more in the city, let's say New York City, and you have, I'll just use my business as an example. I have a clothing factory. I serve, independent designers. Out of those independent designers, what is the age range? The average age range is between 20 and 30. They're new. They're post college or college age students, or young adults.
Yeah.
So I'm serving younger adults, and they don't have much money. So how can I serve them better when I know that they don't have much money to start their business?
Mm.
Well, instead of doing 100 to 500 MOQs, let's narrow it down to 30 per style, per color. Let's eliminate some of the nuances in developing a clothing brand. We don't need to have tech packs, which most brands would say cost 2 to 10K each per style. There's no need for that. So let's save them $50,000 up front. Let's eliminate, certain things that they don't need. Let's only give them the services that they need because they don't have a lot of capital.
Mm-hmm.
So we're only going to do basic services, pattern development, sample development, sourcing as an option, grading, and cut and sew. That's it. So when you provide them only the things that they need based on the issues, the problems within an industry, that allows things to be more streamlined,
Mm-hmm.
more effective, and then they get to, you know, make their dreams come true, all
Right.
while making money. So it's like a win-win for two people and then also the community.
Yeah, that's really interesting and something that I know a lot of entrepreneurs think about is kind of, just like really, maybe they've identified a target audience, but there might be kind of like an array of needs that need to be addressed. And so kind of
Mhm.
focusing in on, what really matters to their target audience and designing their solution around those specific needs versus spreading themselves thin. I think that
Yes.
Really wonderful. And you mentioned pricing a little bit ago, and I know that pricing can be a big challenge for entrepreneurs, especially early on. So I'm wondering, what are some of the key factors that founders might consider when they're developing that pricing strategy, and any just common mistakes to avoid?
Yeah, I would avoid just saying, "Oh, I want to market to everybody," because I hear that so often. So many people, I ask the question, "Well, what is your price point?" Uh, Many don't know. So what I have to do is help them break down their design idea or their product idea and then build a customer profile. Based on looking at the customer profile, then I can say, well, this is the type of client that would spend so much money on this type of product. So it always goes back down to the customer profile. But when I'm helping clients to determine that, I say, well, is it more like mass market? Is it a budget friendly, like your Walmart? Walmart is like a mass market, budget friendly price point. Is it more like contemporary price point where the product or service is somewhere between $100 to $180? Is it more higher end where someone is spending thousands of dollars per product? So when they get an idea of that, then you can determine what the wholesale price is. The wholesale price determines how, basically how much a client can make of a product and how much profit that they, make based on what their wholesale. Oftentimes people want to start with, the retail price. Well, whatever you charge me is what then I'm going to have to see about how much I can charge my client. But that should be opposite. You always have to go back down to the customer profile and your target audience to determine what your competitors are doing, what their price point is, and then you figure out where you sit somewhere in the middle of all of that.
Yeah.
Is your product better quality? Can determine if you can charge a little bit more or a little less. So it goes back down to the customer profile every single time and identifying your target audience every single time. Um, but I would say for any person who is starting a new business, and let's say you have a contemporary price point of a product. So let's say you have skincare and you want to figure out how much you want to sell a moisturizer for. You're going to do research. You need to do research on what products that you like that are similar to yours.
Yeah.
And you say, well, what customer is buying that product? Is my customer similar to theirs? Well, then you're building up that customer profile to determine, well, what are their hobbies? Do they travel? How much money do they make? How much can they spend? Because if someone has children and they're making 120,000, they may only be able to afford a product that's $20 versus a product that's $46.
Mhm.
So knowing that is very key to in getting your price accurate and so that your potential customer will keep coming to you, especially if you have a good product.
Mhm. Yeah, really interesting. And I just want to touch on this really quick because I see a couple questions in the Q&A. I know we have some in the audience that are B2B, and I wonder, just what are your thoughts on how to potentially fine tune your customer profiling for, if you're profiling for a business, how does that process look different, if at all?
It's slightly different. It's kind of similar. I also do B2B as well and B2C. So when you're doing business B2B, you have to have like a capability statement. You need to have, you know, your business is marketed differently to B2B versus B2C. So I also do business with government agencies. When I pulled out, when I developed my profile for who I want to work with, I said, you know what? I want to work with, city agencies that work with kids, high schoolers, because those are the ones who are coming out and post high school, post college, who are looking to be creative and do more business. So I said, I need to get to those kids before they hit a certain age. So in order for me to do that, I need to work with, schools, which are city under Department of Education and city agencies. So I determined who I wanted to work with. It's not by age when you're doing B2B. It's based on the impact that you want to make and who has the greater opportunity for you to make an impact within a specific company.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have to research what their budget is. So, whereas with B2C, you're just building out a customer profile but with B2B, you already kind of know what their budget is because a lot of the information is public information. You just have to research for it. So the way that you go about building out your customer profile is one is already public information. You have to research for it. And one of them is you're still researching, but you're trying to figure out, well, who is within that, and then you have to go in that space
Yeah. Yeah.
and position yourself. It's still very similar. It's just that one, B2B is more bureaucratic
Yeah.
and sometimes can take longer because you have to develop relationships in order to get in the door. Whereas B2C, you're basically marketing yourself and putting yourself in the position in the community for people to acknowledge or recognize the services that you offer. And the other is really all about connections and knowing the right people to get you in the door. But it's still the basic layout is still similar, still the same.
Sure. Yeah.
Because because if you're doing B2B, you need to know, well, who is the contact person that I need to reach out? Who is the decision maker? You
Yeah.
know, who is their assistant? What is their email? What is their contact number? With
Mhm.
customers, you don't have that information.
Yeah.
So the way you approach the two are very different. But with my business, when I'm offering B2B services, you have to have a capability statement, which tells that business or the agency the information about you, your NAICS codes, which is, codes that align with with your business and services that you offer, so that they automatically know within their system what services they can purchase from you.
Yeah.
So in that one sheeter, you're telling all about your business without you being present.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I think that's super helpful. And I know we have a ton of folks in the audience that's going to be relevant too. So wonderful. And, just thinking about all of these different pieces, we got the customer profiling, competitive analysis, pricing strategy, and I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs, many of whom are solopreneurs doing this all on their own. And so, uh, you know, uh, bootstrapping is often necessary for businesses, that are kind of working without this outside capital from the early stages. And so, what are some strategies that entrepreneurs can use to bootstrap effectively to help keep their business on track when they maybe don't have outside capital, and really keeping these processes on track?
I would say start with local organizations within your community. Um, in New York, there were nonprofit organizations that were so helpful that connected me with lawyers, accountants, bookkeepers, people in marketing, all free. So start with your local um, organizations who help entrepreneurs, because that can be your key to saving you $100,000. And that's how I started. I mean, when I first started, I someone told me about this nonprofit who helps with grant writing or helps with connecting you with grant makers. And so I won like two different grant awards within my community where my business is located. And I had some issues with, new clients. I needed um, some paperwork drafted, and so I had them to draft contracts. Contracts are key and important with dealing, doing business with anyone, whether it's an individual, whether it's B2B. It's always great to have all the expectations lined out, you know, in clear format so that both parties understand and know what to expect and how to conduct business with each other. And so I had someone to do that for me. I had someone to help me with, setting up payroll. So that was key because I started hiring people. And if I did not have any of that, I would not have been able to obtain certain certifications that was required in order to do business with the government.
Yeah.
So because I had assistance through local nonprofits in my area, one, I saved so much money not having to pay out of pocket for an attorney, or pay out of pocket for someone to help me set up my payroll, you know, and just getting my business structurally sound. Because when I first started my business about, 15 years ago, it was solo. I was registered as a basically solo entrepreneur. And once I restarted, I did everything the correct way, but it cost more money to do it the right way. But if you do it the right way, you don't have to go backwards, which costs you 3 times more.
Yeah.
But I will tell you what I did. Um, what I did was I had other gigs that outside of fashion, I used my other talents to, work and, get more money. I saved that money. However, I wished I knew about investing at the time. I didn't know. I had $20,000 sitting in a savings account doing nothing. What I would have done is I would have opened, an interest saving, an interest, savings account, a high yield interest savings account. Or I would have, you know, had an insurance policy, a cash value insurance policy. You know, I would have did something else where the interest was compounding on the money that was sitting there for 6 years. That would have been a smarter way to go about it. But over the time, you learn as you grow. Uh, if you're also trying to raise more money, you can do so by, there's Kickstarter, and there's GoFundMe nowadays that you have GoFundMe and social media to raise money for projects that you're working on. And there's all sorts of creative ways, but I didn't want to go that route. But, you know, there's different options for other people. You can use other things that you love to do that's not part of your business to raise money for the things that you really want to do. Like if you love to cook, but cooking is not your business, you can do something to where you're raising money to or selling food to raise money and capital to start your business. You can do pre-orders for your product. You don't have to, do a full batch of a product until, and then try to sell. Because that's really that's the harder route. And
Totally.
so you just have to find different creative ways. Like use whatever you have within yourself to explore different ideas. Like some you may say, you know what, let me wear my own clothing. Let me talk about my book. Let me talk about my hair product. Let me use my hair care product. Let me see if someone will be interested in collaborating, partnering with other people to get your brand and your name out there before you ever even launch your product. So there's all these different things you can do before you get to the big bang, the big launch.
Hmm.
So you don't have to put out so much money in advance before you even get a product. And then so when you like, let's say you're gonna launch a hair care line January 2026. This is the time right now you already have your product. You only have samples of your product. You get, say, 15 or 20 samples of your product. You're testing the market with influencers, with people you know to share, give testimonials. So because you have to build credibility of whatever it is that you're selling. So when people are seeing the credibility, you're reaching out to your local newspaper to see if they would do a story on you, or write about your product, or even just place it somewhere, or be a part of a group of people that they always speak about during each season, right? So then you're making sure that your product is, one, on the ground, two, online, social media, three, someone has written about your work before you even launch. So when you even get to the launch day, okay, people are going to be pre-ordering. So now because you have pre-order, now people are going to already purchase before they get it. So now you have the funds to purchase the product that you need to ship.
Yeah. Oh, so many golden nuggets in here, and I know we have some folks in the chat that are like, yes, these are such great ideas. And I want to stay on this topic for just a moment because, launching and scaling can be so resource intensive. And so, thinking about, these bootstrapping strategies, and kind of moving into like the management of those, funds, how can founders really prioritize their spending to ensure sustainable growth, for their product at launch
Mhm.
while avoiding those unnecessary expenses?
One, I'm going to take it back to the personal side, because the average entrepreneur usually starts with their own savings. So you need to understand how to budget your money in your personal life. If you're not good at balancing your own finances, paying your bills on time, you're not going to be great at being an entrepreneur. So, and if you understand that you're not that, financially savvy, take some classes, learn about money, learn about how it works. It's okay, even if you're 40, 35, 50 years old, it's never too late to learn about money and how it works. I was 35 years old when I first learned about money and how it works. And once I learned, it was like my brain exploded. But I said, there's no reason why people, because we were never taught about money in high school and school. So, and then in college, I didn't really learn about, what I know now.
Mm.
And so, for me, what I did once I learned about money, especially during the pandemic, I invested into real estate.
Mm.
So I took a little bit of money that I had already and I invested it, and then if you decide you want to sell and make profit or flip, you have money then to do other other creative ventures. So you don't have to just use the one thing that you're going into business for to, gain capital. You can do other things like investing. You can do it other things like I said about the cash value life insurance policy. Even with that, if you have a value, I'm sorry, not a value, but you have a life insurance policy that's cash value, you know, the, over the years, as you're paying into it, you can actually borrow from your insurance policy to fund your projects, to fund, even if you want to buy a house or an investment property, then you don't even have to go to a bank. That then becomes your own bank,
Yeah.
you know? So learning about money is key in your personal life because then it's going to transfer over into your business. And you can actually do the same thing with your business. Let's say, even if you want to, get a trust fund or, have your business under the trust, or you want to take a cash value loan out on your business, and you're doing the same thing as with your personal life. You then no longer have to use a bank or go through the process of a bank. You then eliminate them having to check your credit score or provide, several month statements or years of tax returns. You then eliminate all of that hassle. So imagine if at 18 years old, every person at 18 years old gets a cash value life insurance or policy or a UIL. And they just pay $100 a month. And let's say by the time they're 30, they wanted to start a business. They could probably take out $20,000, $26,000 on their policy to start their business.
Yeah.
Now, that policy is already accruing interest. So if you're borrowing from it, you're only paying, let's say, half of that in interest. So you still have interest that you're accruing, and then you can determine how much you either want to pay back, on that whatever you borrowed.
Mhm.
So I would say understanding money, how it works at an early age, start using that to start your business. And even set your kids up. If you have children and you know that they're already entrepreneurs, start looking at, even if you have a kid and you want to start a custodial IRA account for them, put money in there for them. By the time they're 18, they probably have about almost $200,000. So it's things like that, you can start now. If we understood the value of money and understood how it works, especially with compounding, because saving no longer works. Just saving money is not it. You know, um, allowing your money to work for you so that then you can do all the other things you want to do without a struggle. That would be one of the ways I would suggest that people start, or even if they just have an idea of, oh, I want to start a business, but my personal credit isn't that great. So many entrepreneurs use their credit cards, their personal credit cards, to start a business. So what happens? Their credit tanks because they're using money from their personal life to start the business. And if you're trying to develop business credit, you can't get credit if your personal credit is tanked. So, what better way to start if someone else isn't funding it? It's being smart up here before you even decide that you're going to start a business.
Mm. Yeah, really interesting. And I love this conversation because it can be so easy to be like, oh, there's only a couple options for me that I don't know how to move forward, but there are innovative solutions out there, like, to really make your money work for you, like
Yeah.
you're saying, instead of just sitting there. And I know you mentioned this briefly, and I know we'll probably have some audience members asking about this, just would love to hear your thoughts generally on, thinking about these strategies. Like what really is the role of credit and how can entrepreneurs who maybe have struggling with personal or business credit move forward and kind of de deal with that current status?
Okay, so what I did when I had like $70,000 worth of debt, and this was personal debt. I calculated all the debt that I have. I put it in order, prioritized it, what was important, what I wanted to pay off in a year, what I wanted to pay off in 6 months, 3 months, and so forth. I organized the entire list of what I wanted to eliminate first. And then I started calculating by, okay, well, how much do I need to pay in order to pay this off in 1 year? I broke it down by the month, then by the week, and and then I said, okay, here's the goal. I have a 3 month goal for this one. I have a 6 month goal for this one. I have a 1 year goal for this one. Once one was paid off, then I said, okay, let's reevaluate and see how much more I can pay on one. This is the personal side. Now, the personal side allowed me to obtain business credit. But I would say on the business side, applying for grants. I really would not advise applying for loans so early on because you don't know how viable your business is yet. And I would say if you're going to apply for a loan, apply for it when, let's say, you have a large purchase order, you know, and you need the extra funds to complete the order. You don't get a loan just to start the business because so many businesses tank within the first year. And those who make it past year one, you have a 3 year threshold, and then year five. After you make it year five, you're kind of like almost in the green zone, but you never know because what happens when you start to scale. And so I would not advise getting loans to start your business. Only apply for loans when you have a large or purchase order that you need the extra funds to fulfill.
Yeah. Yeah.
And apply for grants. Look up if there are any community grants in your neighborhood. Some there were so many different grants available that people didn't realize or know about because they didn't research. Always research. Get involved with your chamber of commerce. Your local government agencies like your city councils. Always communicate with them, your local leaders. See if there's anything that they know of that's coming down the pipeline that are for small businesses. So getting involved, networking, knowing, the right people. Someone may just say, hey, we have this grant coming up for small businesses that the average person would not know about if they weren't connected.
Mm. Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. And that kind of just goes back to, doing that research, seeing what's, the opportunities and resources that are available locally to you. And that really, really awesome insight there. And I know
Let me
we're,
add,
oh yeah.
I want to add, um, also, I did just mention about, your local leaders. Know in wherever your business is located, you want to know who your city council member is in your district where your business is located. Get connected with them. Get connected with your mayor. I know it's hard, but if you are everywhere, those people are and they recognize you, trust me, you're going to be on their radar. And, even let's say you have a product that the city or the state may need.
Yeah.
There's so many different agencies within a state. You can do business with them by, well, there's many steps to doing business with them. However, but making sure that your business is legit, is sound. You have your EIN, you have your DUNS number, if you hired people, having correct payroll, like all these different things, you did everything correct, you can do business with your city and your state, and it's lucrative. But, get involved wherever your business is. It doesn't matter what product you have. They may have there may be a school who have a high rate of homeless children. They may need hygienic products, right? So getting involved in letting them know what you offer, whether it's a product or service, if you can gear whatever service or product you have to their needs, you can make a lot of money. You don't have to stick with B2C, which is going to be harder if you don't have the capital. You can pivot all around to tailor your services to B2B, but a B2B will be with your city and your state,
Yeah.
which you can make way more money because then you're dealing with one entity, even though there's several agencies, clients under agencies, like an umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah, really interesting. Lots for entrepreneurs in the audience to think about. And
Mm-hmm.
just for us to transition into Q&A here, I'm curious, when entrepreneurs are facing setbacks and maybe they're struggling with the limited funds available to them, how can they maintain focus and just continue pushing forward without that safety net?
Have a community of partners and other entrepreneurs, um, and they don't have to be within your same field. Just having a good support system around you will completely help. There was one time in my business I was struggling, and I just so happened to speak to another entrepreneur, and then she connected me with a foundation, that could help me with that transition period that I was going through in my business, because I had a client who didn't pay, and
Mm.
it was a big order.
Yeah.
And so because I spoke about it, she connected me with someone who could help. And that foundation ended up connecting me to another nonprofit organization that was in my local area.
Hmm.
Yeah, so always surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. It doesn't matter what industry they're in. It's good to actually have um, a community of people in different fields.
Mhm.
So that's one thing I would say is, and don't be afraid to speak up about what's happening in your business, because you don't know how someone else can help you if you don't communicate.
Mhm.
Don't feel like that you're in this alone, because you're not in it alone. That's almost kind of like the lie we tell ourselves, is that we're by ourselves, but we're never by ourselves. You know, we have people who are willing and who always want to reach out and, lend a helping hand. You just have to speak what you're going through, so that, and also be open and willing to receive the help that you desire.
Yeah. Oh, so wonderful. Ladaska, this has been incredible. And I think we have a couple minutes for live Q&A. So if you are in the audience and you have a question for Ladaska, please drop it in that Q&A box at the bottom. And just to kick us off, I know we had somebody that was asking, what does it look like, for an entrepreneur just starting out to begin to build trust and credibility, when you might have limited capital to support, your business early on, what does that look like, or what strategies can entrepreneurs implement to build that trust and credibility despite limited capital?
Again, if you have samples of your product,
Mm.
any person who tests your product, they have to, and especially if it's free, they have to give a testimonial. It's a give and get. It's the same thing as if you give someone a card, you get information back. So whoever tries on your, whether it's clothing, if they try on your clothes, they need to give a testimonial. If they're trying on your skincare, they need to give a testimonial. Whether it is a visual testimonial, like a video testimonial, or a written testimonial that you can share online, you can share on your website, what people are saying about your product, and you do like a little video recap, those are free. That's free to do. And then, you can always make one sheeters. And again, when it comes to your customer, your target audience, and you place yourself in those areas where your potential customer is, you know, speak to those people. But of course, you have to look the part. Whatever your customer looks like, you have to look like your customer because you have to be relatable. And if you're relatable, you're not going to build trust in a day.
Yeah.
Building trust takes time. So you also have to be patient with that. And so as you're building, people need to just know about who you are and your product. That's it. The trust comes later. It's like in a relationship.
Totally.
You don't, if you get into an intimate relationship with someone, you don't trust them the first day that you meet them. It takes time to build, seeing what their character is like, see how they treat other people. It's the same thing. How do they treat you? How do they show up for you if you're sick? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So don't worry about the trust. The trust will come. You're building awareness,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's the first priority.
Yeah, really interesting. And yeah, I love that you kind of d distinguish the two, because I think it can be easy for entrepreneurs to kind of just jump both feet into both. But it is kind of like a process, and that awareness builds in turn builds that trust and
Mhm.
credibility. So I think that's wonderful. And I think we have time for one more question. And I know we had somebody that was asking about, like, if you're kind of a business that's at the point where you're beginning to scale, what are, just some best practices financially to uh, keep you on a path of sustainable success?
I would say always keep at least I'm going to say more than 6 months, 9 to 18 months of savings in your account. Because as you're scaling, there's going to be sacrifices you make along the way. You may not be able to do certain things that you were already doing because as you're scaling to grow up, um, you may not have time to do certain things that you were doing before. You may not be able to serve every client that you were previously. So always have, if you're scaling, have 9 to 18 months of savings in your bank account.
Yeah, really wonderful. Awesome. Ladaska, this has been so incredible. Thank you for such an amazing overview and just great strategies that founders can implement right away. If you had just one key takeaway or piece of wisdom that you would like to leave with the audience, what would that be?
One key takeaway. Um, I would say, huh, one key takeaway, man, that's a
I know it's tough.
I'm like, wait, I have a couple of key takeaways. Let me look in my book because I know there's okay. I'll say this. A key takeaway is is a few. I'm gonna wrap it up really quick.
You got it.
Make sure that your business is solid, meaning having your EIN number, making sure that you have your DUNS number, making sure that you have, all your registrations, whether if your business, whatever certifications your business need versus state, city, all of that, have all of that together. If you're starting and you don't have much capital, make sure in your personal bank account you have at least 12 months of savings, and never quit your job until your business has reached a certain level number. So before you start, you should say, you know what, if I'm already working, I have a number in my head to where what my business needs to be doing before I quit my job. Never just quit and have savings. You can still keep working while working your business, but your business needs to hit, let's say, 90,000 consistently for 2 years, or 150,000 for 2 or 3 years straight before you say, you know what, okay, I can actually quit and focus on this full time, you know. And in that process, make sure that your bank account is, at least have comfortably 9 to 12 months of savings, meaning the amount it takes for you to live every month, including all your bills, mortgage or rent, your extracurricular, times 9 or 12.
Yeah. Amazing, La'Daska. Thank you so much on behalf of the NASDAQ Center and everyone here today. We are just so thankful that you joined us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And also I will be sending you over the roundup summary, and then for everyone that joined in live, they will get a discount code for joining in with my new book, The Fashion Disciple. So I will send that over to you guys, and so you can share with everyone that joined in. And thank you. I really appreciate you guys having me here. I enjoyed this so much.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. And to our audience, we'll get you that link. And we hope to see you again for upcoming webinars, which you can view using those links that are posted in the chat. And thank you all so much for joining us today. We look forward to welcoming you back online with us soon.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.